Hi, this is Synthchaser from synthchaser.com. Somehow I managed to make over 100 synth repair videos without making a single video of a Moog synthesizer repair. So let's change that right now. This vintage Minimoog Model D is actually in pretty good operating condition and just needed a few tweaks to its trimmers, which I've already done. But this is an old school synth from back in the days before LEDs were everywhere, so the power light is an actual neon light bulb which can and does burn out. So today we're going to change the power light on this keyboard. Also, the power cord seems to have been replaced at some point, but it's really short. But more importantly, as you can see, at some point the panel must have been folded down onto the cord since it's damaged, and actually the copper wires carrying mains level voltages are exposed. Normally folding the panel down on that wouldn't damage the cable so easily, but this is a Chinese cord of questionable quality. This Minimoog belongs to an awesome musician, and we want to keep him alive and safe, so we're going to change out this power cord while we're in there. We're going to use one with a little more durable insulating sleeve, and of course a longer cable. So to get started, we're going to do the first and most important step: unplug the synthesizer if you have not done so already. So next we're going to open up the back of the case, and we do this by removing 18 screws. There's 4 on each side here, 5 along the top, and 5 along the bottom. Now with these screws removed, we can remove the back of the case. And set it aside. And at this point we'll stick something underneath here to keep this propped up. So now that we're in, we can see that there's actually not that much going on inside the Minimoog. There's a row of circuit boards here. There's another row of circuit boards behind it, and behind that is the panel with all the pots and the switches and stuff. So not a ton of stuff going on in here, but let's take a little closer tour of the insides of this synth. So over here on the left we see the power transformer. Below it is this board with the really old capacitors that look like they've never been changed, and this is called the rectifier board. And it's called the rectifier board because it has these 4 diodes here, which are configured as a bridge rectifier, which along with these filter capacitors changes the AC voltages coming from the transformer into an unregulated DC voltage, which then it sends off to the power supply board. So the power supply board is this board tucked back here, and you can see the 2 large heat sinks, although they're not very efficient heat sinks, and the transistors are mounted all the way in one corner of them. But this board converts the unregulated DC voltages into regulated DC voltages for the rest of the synthesizer to use. So over here on the right we have the oscillator board. The Minimoog has 3 identical oscillators, and you can see the circuits laid out here horizontally across the board. 3 identical oscillators. Someone has replaced the original trim pots with new modern ones on this oscillator board. Tucked behind the oscillator board is another circuit board here called the contour generator, which generates the 2 envelopes for the VCA and the filter, and it generates a constant current source for the key bed so it can make control voltages. From here you can also get a glimpse of the pots and switches that are attached to the back of the front panel and wired in. And this last board over here is the filter board because it houses the Moog ladder filter, which is what made this synth a legend. And you can actually see the little transistor ladder over here which make up the 4-pole filter. Basically you follow these 5 pairs of transistors up, and that's the same path your audio signal takes, and then it comes out at the top all fat sounding. In addition to the filter, this board houses the VCA and the circuit to generate the A440 reference tone. So now that we've had a little look around inside, let's get down to business and take care of these 2 repairs. So to get a little more room to work in back here for the power cord and the pilot lamp, I'm going to remove these 2 boards, the filter board and the power supply board. And you remove boards in the Minimoog by removing the screws at the top of the board, which hold it to the back of the panel. And then just pull it up out of its card socket, like this. So we remove the filter board, and now we have access to the power supply board. So we remove the power supply board the same way. There's a couple of screws here, which we'll take out. And then we can lift the board up and out of its card socket. And this is the power supply board. Now that we've removed those boards, you can have a better look at the back of the panel, and you can see all the pots in there, all hand-wired pots and switches. It's a beautiful sight. So now let's do what we've come here for, and that is the power cord. So the power cord pokes through the panel here. So here's our power wire coming in, and there's some different color wires going off to different things. In the old days, green was earth, and white was neutral, and black was the line or hot. But nowadays, it's mostly brown, green, and blue, where green is your earth ground, blue is your neutral, and brown, which in this case looks more reddish to me, but it should be brown, is your line or your hot mains voltage. And it would be pretty easy to just go and put a new cord in, wired up the same way as the old cord, but since this was obviously not done by the factory, I think it makes sense to take a look at the schematic and see how they have it wired up there, just to make sure that this is correct. And sure enough, the power cord here is installed in the opposite polarity of how it should be installed. According to the schematic and common sense, you would have the hot coming here to the fuse, and instead they have the neutral coming to the fuse and the hot coming down to the switch. So when we install our new power cord, we're going to put it in with the correct polarity. So I'm just going to snip the old wires off here. So blue from the fuse, brown from the switch, and the green earth here. I'll just cut it here for now. I'm going to wind up unbolting this and taking this off. There's a little zip tie here, and they have the wire kind of knotted and hot glued, so we'll get that. Or is that rubber cement? Just popped right off. Just take this out, and the old super cheap low quality power cord is gone. So while the power cord is out of the way, now might be a good time to do the swap of the neon lamp for the power light. So you can see that it's mounted with this retaining clip here against the panel, and there's some wires that come down, unfortunately to the bottom of this switch here, which is a little difficult to get to. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to clip the wires here, and we're going to solder the new lamp to the existing wires which are already connected to the switch. That way we don't have to mess around down here. To get this old lamp off, we're going to pop the retaining clip off with a thin screwdriver. Now we can just clip it and get it out of the way. And we can push the old lamp up and out. And we're going to give it a little clip to the existing wires. And just like that, the old lamp's been removed. You can see that it's a little charred here. You can get a replacement lamp which comes with the little locking washer on my website, synthchaser.com. And we install this in the opposite way that we removed it. We poke the wires through and install the lamp into the panel like such. And then we slip the locking washer over the wires and push it into place. And here's where I soldered the wires for the power light. I put a little bit of heat shrink over it since this is mains voltages, and we'll just tuck it here like the old wires were tucked out of the way. And we didn't have to mess with this mess of wires down here on the switch. And now I'll wire in the power cord. And now I've got my power cord wired in correctly. So I have the line, the hot, going to the fuse, and I've put a bit of heat shrink over this big lug here so no one inadvertently bumps against it or it doesn't brush against anything else. I have the neutral coming down here to the switch, and I have the earth ground here on the chassis. So now we can turn it on and inspect our work. And even though we don't have those two boards installed again, the power supply board and the filter board, This switch and stuff like that, all that stuff is before the power transformer anyway, so we can turn it on, and now our power light illuminates. So we've replaced the power cord correctly, and we've replaced the power lamp correctly. So now I'm going to put those boards back and close up the back, and we'll have a final look. So first we'll put the power supply board back in, and next we'll put the filter board back in. And we'll put on the back panel and close everything up. So I didn't really do any earth-shattering work on this Minimoog today, but with the calibrations that I made, it sounds a little bit better. I can sound now exactly like Rick Wakeman. But I just can't play like Rick Wakeman. It looks a lot better. The power lamp is now lit up. It looks like it should. It's a little more functional with the longer power cord. You no longer have to have this right next to an electrical outlet with this reasonable length power cord. But most importantly, it's a lot safer. The old power cord was damaged, and also the polarity of the wiring was wrong. The hot and neutral were mixed up. So hopefully this video was helpful to those of you with burned out power lamps or power cords in need of replacement. And for the rest of you, I hope this was an interesting peek inside one of the most iconic vintage synthesizers out there. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and enable notifications so you can join me as we continue to explore the inner workings of these amazing vintage synthesizers. This has been Synthchaser from synthchaser.com. Thanks for watching and have a great day.